I'd like to call the meeting to order. The Board Operations Performance Committee meeting today is December the 9th. And if we could have roll call, Akuyo
City of Gonzales,
here.
City of Pacific Grove,
Here.
City of King, City of Carmel by the Sea,
Here.
City of Marina,
Here.
and City of Salinas. Chair, you have a form.
Very good, thank you. Okay, public comments on matters not on the agenda. Members of the public may address the committee on any matter related to the jurisdiction of MST, but not on the agenda. There is a time limit of not more than 3 minutes for each speaker. The committee will not take action or respond immediately to any public comments presented, but may choose to follow up at a later time, either individually, through staff, or on a subsequent agenda. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the committee? I see no one in chambers. Do we have anyone online? It doesn't look like. All right, I will close the public comment at this time and move forward to the consent agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at that, approve the minutes of the board operations performance? Do I have a
Yes.
motion for approval?
Yes, that's.
Okay. Second, okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes or the consent agenda is passed. Moving on to action items. Number 4.1, review of operations performance. And that is you, Carl.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So ridership just continues to grow month after month. I think we're into over 2 years of solid growth, month over month over month. Which is all great. We had 40,000 more passenger boardings for October of this year as we did the previous October. And on-time performance is still, pretty well 82%. It's not quite to our standard, but traffic is not great out there, and we're hung up along with everybody else. For the MST rides performance, that ridership is growing, not as robustly as the fixed route, but that's not necessarily a bad thing for MST. Our subsidies per passenger on the rides program is significantly higher to operate. On-time performance is comparable at 83% on-time performance for the rides. So people on the rides system are getting comparable service to the fixed route system, which is the purpose of the ADA. Moving on to what your board was attempting to accomplish with the Better Bus Network. The departures in disadvantaged communities continues to grow. Even, there was a big jump from pre-Better Bus Network to the Better Bus Network being implemented, something like moving from something like 18% to 25%. Now we're at 28%, a 2% growth year over year. More people boarding in the most disadvantaged communities. So your board's goals are continue to be met. One thing I found interesting in the stats this month, I took a look at, if Vanpools were a transit line, it would be our 9th most used transit trip, and that continues to grow. And that's really a program that we're going to put a lot of effort in, because we can use drivers who aren't our employees to make trips that are counted for us, and it's for trips that are outside of perhaps when it's convenient for some of our employees to, or some of our community to use transit. So we've seen interest from the Monterey Bay Aquarium, from some ag industries. I believe the Plaza Hotel. We're starting to grow that program, and word is starting to get out about this program. So I'm looking forward to, over the next year, seeing more growth in the Vanpool program, because that's a real efficient way for MST to remove trips off the street. And it's a very affordable way for us to do that as well. So that concludes my operations report.
Very good. I'd like to open this up to the public. Is there anyone from the public that has questions concerns? I see none online and none in the chamber, so I will close public comment. Any questions from the committee? No? Okay, moving on. 4.2, receive updates on MST H2 retrofit, microgrid design, and ICT rollout plan projects. And that is Norman.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you today. Welcome all. I know it's early in the morning and thank you for hanging in there and being here today. My name is Norm Tutafuki. I'm your Chief Operating Officer for MST. I've been here for going on 7 years now. Previous to that, I was working in Stockton, worked there for almost 12 years. Been in public transit for 18 years total. So looking forward to what the future holds for us in operations, also for MST. Next slide, please. So today I'll be giving you an overview on some of the things that we're doing in operations. We've got 3 major projects that we're working on right now, and then we've got 2 initiatives that I'd like to introduce to you guys. So who are we? We are the operations department. The department that I oversee includes maintenance, vehicle maintenance, inventory control, where we purchase our parts and do some other procurement activities in. The facilities department that takes care of all of our bus stops, all of our transfer stations, all of our facilities. Mobility services, where we do in-person interviews for ADA certification. They also oversee the Rides Paratransit program and our taxi voucher system. Transportation operations, that includes all of our coach operators, all of our supervisors and manager, who oversees the coach operators that deliver service on the street for us. And then our contract services manager. He directly manages or assists with managing our third-party operating contracts, which includes MV Transportation. They deliver our Rides Paratransit program. They also take care of some fixed route services for us. And then Kevin also oversees the Allied Universal contract. That is our security provider. They do in-person security services for us throughout our system. He also oversees he assists with overseeing the contract for the janitorial services that we have throughout our system. Almost 80% of all MST employees work within the operations department, and we're responsible for fulfilling MST's daily transportation goals. All of our coach operators, our mechanics, our technicians, our utility service workers, facilities technicians, operations supervisors, mobility specialists, a whole slew of people. We all work together to coordinate to make sure that we meet our daily goals of providing service to this community. I've got 5 people who work directly with me. Together, we manage the entire department, which is roughly 175 employees. In addition to that, we oversee the contract for MV. That's another 100 employees. So as you can see, it's a huge lift for us. Every single day, we have to coordinate work schedules, make sure that we're on the street delivering the service that we're supposed to be doing. Next slide, please. We're here today to talk about 3 projects and then 2 additional initiatives. The 3 projects that we're currently and actively working on are, number 1, the hydrogen fuel cell retrofit or hydrogen fuel retrofit that's happening at our Monterey division, and also the microgrid design. And then the 3rd project that we're working on is the innovative clean transit regulation rollout plan update. And then the 2 initiatives that we're working on for next year is the charge point charger installation and then the taxi voucher transition. Next slide, please. All right, let's talk about the hydrogen fuel retrofit. So earlier this year, we issued a request for proposal seeking qualified firms to complete 2 major initiatives for MST. Initiative 1 was to design the hydrogen retrofits that are required and for MST to manage. The 2nd initiative was to design a microgrid for MST's Monterey facility. We awarded the project to Kimley Horn after completing the RFP process with our procurement department. Kimley Horn meets with me, other key MST employees on a regular basis. We review project status milestones, troubleshoot issues, and we hope to complete the entire project by 2025, mid-year 2025. So the MST hydrogen fuel retrofit project includes upgrading the facility in Monterey so that we're able to perform maintenance, vehicle maintenance within our facility. So they're going through right now, looking at all of our systems, looking at our facility, seeing what we need to retrofit in order to make that happen. To date, we've completed the fact-finding and info gathering process. Kimley Horn had conducted in-person interviews with MST. They performed extensive site analysis of the Monterey facility, and they reviewed a bunch of different site drawings and construction documents from previous projects and what the facility looks like today. Right now, we're at 30% design. Our team has reviewed the 30% design documents and provided our comments. One of the challenges that we saw early on in the process was that Kimley Horn had some issues locating some drawings, but we worked through that issue. The facility is, I think it's almost 50 years old. And so there were some designs and some documents, some different modifications that have taken place over time, and they just had to get their hands on the right drawings. We were also faced with deciding which maintenance bay to retrofit. Because of the wide open spaces within our maintenance garage, we decided to designate the hydrogen maintenance activities and the retrofits that we need to our newest garage, the biggest garage. Making this designation prevented us from having to make additional improvements to our facility. And we've got enough space to make that garage for us to allow multiple hydrogen fuel cell buses to be worked on at the same time. It just made sense that we did it that way. Next steps for the hydrogen process is hydrogen retrofit we'll continue through the design process. At approximately 90% design, we'll begin working with our procurement department to issue another RFP so that we can award a contract to a constructor who will complete the facility retrofits for us. Next slide, please. So the second initiative is the microgrid design. So Kimley Horn's second initiative is to design a microgrid for our Monterey facility. As you know, MST is required to fully transition our fleet of diesel powered buses to zero emission buses by 2040. So beginning in calendar year 2029, no agency in California are going to be authorized to purchase internal combustion engine buses. That's here in California. You'll also recall that MST has and will continue to respond to requests from our local emergency operators to evacuate our community members. You'll recall most recently, we evacuated hundreds of residents from Pajaro, and that was something that we prepared for. We activated our employees. We activated our own internal EOC, our Emergency Operations Center, and we did that. Was a heavy lift, but we prepped for it, we're ready for it, and we responded accordingly. Prior to that, MST evacuated residents throughout Monterey County. This was in response to wildfires, again, flooding, and I just want to remind you all this issue is not going away. If MST had fully transitioned to battery electric buses and the local power grid had gone down, like it does, we would not have been able to respond to these requests. Buses today take anywhere from 2 to 6 hours to charge, and we're limited to traveling about 130 miles between charges. A microgrid would provide redundant electricity to the Monterey facility, allowing us to continue operating. So microgrid makes sense for us, especially in times of need, when we need to perform, when we need to provide service, when we need to activate our EOC, we have to have redundancy. Currently, for this project, Kimley Horn is in the fact-finding stage. They're reviewing our facility site drawings and construction documents. They've met with PG&E. They've reviewed our electricity consumption. They've met with 3CE as well. They're reviewing solar and battery options, storage options, so that those two technologies can be integrated into our microgrid. This is a slow and tedious process, and we hope to have the design and engineering completed in 2025. After we have the design in hand, we'll begin looking for funding through grants and other funding mechanisms to build the microgrid. Next slide, please. This is the last of the three projects that we're working on right now. So the ICT rollout plan update. The ICT regulation requires us to create and publish a plan that describes how we, MST, intend to fully transition to zero emission buses by 2040. MST's original plan was published back in 2021. However, several things have changed that require us to update the plan. First of all, the original plan was modeled after our old transportation network. You'll recall a couple of years ago, we designed and implemented the Better Bus Network, which has been a huge success. but our system was dramatically changed with new routes and new connections. Second, the zero emission bus technology and the world has changed dramatically. There are only two right now, two American bus manufacturers on the market who can deliver battery electric buses or hydrogen fuel cell buses. Battery electric buses are now being equipped with almost 700 kilowatts of battery compared to our two previous generation buses that carry a little over 400 kilowatts of battery. We ordered 13 of these newer generation buses, which are estimated to provide more than 200 miles between charges. These two changes required us to go back, look at the ICT plan, update it again so that we can have a better understanding of what it looks like to make the full transition. To date, the firm we selected, HDR, they've made significant progress. They've completed almost 100% of the modeling to understand how many zero emission buses we'll need to purchase in order to fully transition. They've completed the workforce development piece of the document. They've also completed the legislative piece of the document. Both pieces have been reviewed by MST, and we've provided our comments. A final draft of the updated ICT plan should be completed for a final review in just a couple of weeks before the end of this year. With that final draft completed and ready for publishing sometime in January or February of 2025. So stay tuned. There's going to be more that I'll be bringing to you folks in the future. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've got two initiatives. These are just two initiatives that I thought you should know of. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that we're doing right now, but these two initiatives I thought were important enough for you folks to know about. So the first one is the ChargePoint charger installation. So next year we'll be installing 9 additional ChargePoint chargers between our Salinas and our Monterey facilities. When added to our existing network of chargers, we'll be able to charge all of our battery electric buses without having to rotate buses throughout the night. And that's big. There's agencies who only have a number of chargers, but they've got 50 battery electric buses or 20, whatever. They've got more buses than they have chargers. So what that means is throughout the night, they've got to constantly change these buses out, switch them out, move them around. It's just a nightmare. It's a headache right now. So fortunately for us, we've been able to, identify money, purchase the chargers that we need, one for each electric bus. And we'll see what happens in the future. That's the plan for now, is to try and get a charger for each bus. But obviously that's limited by space and money. I'm drafting a scope of work for this project and anticipate releasing an RFP in early 2025. The goal of this project is to have all 9 additional ChargePoint chargers installed and commissioned by November 1st, 2025. Our battery electric buses that are manufactured by Gillig in Livermore, California, go online in November as well. And so we'd like to have these chargers installed, commissioned, ready to go before those 9 additional buses arrive. This is going to help us fully operate the SURF BRT project with all zero emission buses. And it's a requirement of the grant and a goal of our agency. Next slide, please. All right, the last initiative that I wanted to talk about, kind of speak with you guys about today, is the taxi voucher transition. I'm actually drafting a scope of work for an RFP that we intend to issue here shortly that will enable MST to eliminate our paper-based taxi vouchers. So right now we're actually giving paper to thousands and thousands of paper vouchers, and then every month we're reconciling thousands of these paper vouchers. So it takes signatures, it takes tracking, it takes a person actually looking, reconciling. It's a whole lot of work. So we're in the very early stages of scoping out this project. But like I said, the goal of it is to eliminate our current process of issuing, redeeming, reconciling thousands of paper taxi vouchers. The second part of that is that we hope to increase the number of transportation providers who are providing taxi voucher service within our jurisdiction. So we'd like to increase the opportunities for people who use taxi vouchers, who are currently limited to the number of taxi cabs that operate within our jurisdiction. Next slide, please. That's it. that's what I came to talk to you guys about. So as you can see, we're actively working through several projects now, and we've got a couple initiatives that are in the pipeline. Our goal is to improve our operation and our ability to provide public transportation to our customers and the communities that we serve. Kimley Horn, our consulting firm, is actively working through the two initiatives that I spoke about earlier, the hydrogen retrofit and the microgrid design. Our other contractor, HDR, is our partner who's actively updating our ICT rollout plan. We've got those two other projects that I talked about as well, the ChargePoint charger installation project, and then also the last one that I talked about as well. Those are major projects, and I just wanted to share that with you. We've got a whole bunch of other stuff that we work on from day to day. But I thought those three projects that we're working on now, and then those two initiatives were something important enough for you folks to know about. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'd like to open this up to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment about this? No one inside the chambers, no one online, so I'll close public comment, bring it back to the committee. Do you have any questions for Norman?
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
So a couple of questions about the ICT rollout. First, just for my own edification, how much does a ChargePoint charger cost?
Upwards, I don't have it in front of me. I'd say about $25,000
Okay.
just for the charger itself. And then we've got to do some engineering and design to make sure that we can install them in the appropriate locations.
Could you talk for a minute about how the whole integration with the power grid is going with respect to not necessarily the microgrid, but with respect to the ICT work, and
Sure.
whether your work with like 3CE or PG&E, whoever you're dealing with, like time of day stuff, is that all going okay?
That's going okay for us right now. We did some very early work before I came here, where we did some upgrades over to our Monterey facility. I think we added some additional power, and we kind of planned for additional chargers. So we're okay on that front. I've got some colleagues in the industry that haven't prepped and pre-planned for things like that. So when they go to ask either PG&E or Southern California Edison for additional power, you're looking at 36, 48 months, some are 5 years out. So they're not able to pull the power. A lot of what I'm hearing as well is that they've got buses that have been ordered, buses arriving, but they don't have the ability to charge because they don't have the power. They have the money, but they just can't get the boots on ground from PG&E.
So who is our partner here? PG&E or
PG&E.
or 3C?
Both of them. So PG&E has got some, they are the actual equipment install, and then 3CE provides the power that runs through the line. So 3CE's got some programs we're going to be taking advantage of.
I'm on board with 3CE.
Yeah, they've got some programs that we're going to be taking advantage of, but we really have to get in front of PG&E, which we've been doing, and we've been planning with them, making sure that they're aware of our power needs.
So you talked a little bit about charging the buses overnight, but wouldn't it be I'm guessing, wouldn't it be 3CE's preference that you charge the buses during the day?
So right now, when we're charging buses, we have kind of a time of day between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. that we don't charge. So anytime after 10 p.m. and before 4 p.m., we get a better rate of charging.
So before 4 p.m. is what they would.
Yeah, that's what they prefer. But in bus world, buses start arriving back at 3 p.m. and that's when we do our cleaning, our maintenance, and then we start charging or fueling our buses. So 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. is actually our prime time. And so we've got it set up to where we've got our buses, they pull in. We don't actually plug them in. We'll do the maintenance, we'll do the fueling, the cleaning, all that stuff, and then we'll set those buses aside after 10 p.m. and we physically go out and charge those buses. But there's charge management software that's going to allow us to kind of turn on and off the chargers. And so we're working on that kind of thing as well.
So we have enough electric buses. We will have enough electric buses so that there are basically no electric buses in the yard during the day.
Most likely there will be, we'd like to get as many as we can.
When we're done with this process, however many years out that is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Excuse me.
So we're looking at battery electric buses as a bridge to the future of hydrogen, because frankly, the amount of power we would have to generate to power 162 vehicles, we'd have output power probably equal to Salesforce Tower for our facility as the amount of power that we would have to generate. And I don't know that PG&E could actually even deliver that to us. So that's why we're slowly integrating hydrogen into the mix, because hydrogen we can have delivered just like we have diesel
Sure.
delivered. The technology though is still pretty nascent and I'm not ready to do a full-on commitment. Our staff's not ready to do a full-on commitment to hydrogen because it's just not affordable yet. So we're watching the mistakes of our peers, and there are plenty of them out there to look at as they attempt to implement hydrogen. So I'm not certain that we're ever going to be at a point where we have 100% of our fleet battery electric. I think we're going to have a portion, maybe 20% of our fleet battery electric at most. Then we'll start transitioning into a hydrogen.
So you think that by the time you get up to 20%, by the time we get up to, so you said 160 buses, so by the
right.
time we get up to 35 buses,
Right.
that's the point at which we'll start rolling out more hydrogen in this scenario.
Yeah,
That's the point at which we'll start rolling out more hydrogen
I
buses.
think by that
and
point
take
we'll
our
have-
foot off the electric pedal.
I think that is an approach that seems reasonable to account for, we need to have reliability of service. And so many of our peers that we see, they're buying 2 buses for every one that they're replacing, and that's just not an affordable
Right.
model.
Yeah.
A responsible model in my opinion. So we're trying to go at this a little slower and let the technology catch up before we go full on into anything.
And the deadline is like 10 years from now.
So 2026, we're required to purchase, if we purchase any new buses beginning in 2026, 25% of them have to be zero emissions.
We
When's
can continue running the diesel buses until 2040.
okay, so
Yes.
that deadline is.
Yeah, so we just have
15
to,
years from now.
so then we're looking at, then the balancing is the affordability of maintaining the diesel buses, because as they get older, they become more expensive to maintain and you have to maybe put in new engines. And so there's a balancing act there that has to occur as far as where is the tipping point going to be, as when is it more affordable for us to start going into hydrogen versus maintaining old technology. And a lot of that's going to be dependent on funding. And frankly, we've been through, I don't know, a dozen rounds of federal funding programs for the low, no emission buses, and we've just not been successful. And so there's just not that much money floating around for this at the federal level. So we're going to have to look at more state resources to make this happen.
And I had a quick question too, regarding, you said as of 2029, there will be no more diesel allowed.
New
diesel.
Diesel
yeah.
purchases.
Right, new diesels.
2029, is that what you said?
That's-
Or did
Yeah.
you say,
2040, they have to be out of the
but
fleet.
when's the last buy date?
2029.
Okay.
Yeah,
So between 2029 and 2040, we can continue to maintain the old technology and operate it. At 2040, we, under the regulation as it stands today, have to remove the fleet. Now, the regulation could change. There are off-ramps that your board could make a request of the Air Resources Board to get special dispensation and say, we want more time, we want to take the foot off. So far, either no one has made that request in the state, or the grant, it has not been granted by the ARB, and our indications have been the ARB has no desire to give anyone a break on this at this point, because once they give it to one, every transit operator in the state's going to say, we're special, we need special dispensation. So I wouldn't count on the Air Resources Board taking their foot off.
Does the Air Resources Board, do they monitor transportation agencies' plans
Yes.
to
Yeah.
get to 2040? So you have some reporting scheme.
This this update plan that Norm is working on, that will be submitted. We've already submitted a plan 5 years ago. We're going to update the plan and resubmit. So we have, every transit operator in the state has to submit their plans to the Air Resources Board. So
Okay, Joe has a question.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you very much for the presentation.
Sure.
It was great. Just a couple of questions and then maybe I missed it. A couple of questions. The taxi system you said was labor intensive, it sounds like. Do you have, is Kimberly Horn working on that in regards to?
No. That's something that we can do internally. We've got some ideas and we've got talented staff that'll put it out there. So there are solutions that are out there on the open market. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna bring it up at the January workshop, but I think we can give you a preview of what we're thinking about.
Yeah.
One of the frustrations we've had with the taxi voucher program is South County. Because there've been no taxis in South County. And as the taxi administrator, we've been attempting to incentivize and work with our local taxi companies to provide service in South County. Mayor LaBar and King City adopted ordinances that we put into place to help them do that, and still there is no taxi vouchers being processed in South County because no cabs will go down there. So this has been almost 10 years of Measure Q. South County residents have been paying in and not being able to get the same benefits that other residents get, and it's not right. So we're looking at third parties like transportation network companies, think Uber, think Lyft, to say, we are going to contract out the entirety of the taxi voucher program to a third party, and you can contract with individual taxi operators if you want, but you can also bring in your own resources. But you have to commit to 90% on-time delivery. Someone calls for a taxi cab in South County, you got to be there within 90% of the pickup time. We've pitched that as a concept, and there seems to be interest in doing that. We need to navigate that though with our local taxi cab companies, because they won't be happy handing something over to Uber or Lyft. But frankly, they've had 10 years to work this out, and they've not worked it out in spite of our best efforts. And so we're looking at a different way of doing it. More to come to your board on this. This is going to be a big issue that will result in taxi cab companies coming forward and having issues. But frankly,
Those are the good old days, right?
yeah. I think we've racked our brains trying to figure this out and have just kept running into a wall on this. So we are going to look at something new and see go to the market and see what comes out of it. Sure.
I had one more question. And this is just, I know we're dealing with MST, but do you ever meet with other like VTA or other organizations just to, maybe they have some ideas rather than reinvent the wheel type thing?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
And that's kind of
figured
where we
that.
get most of our ideas are kind of, we're looking at other people doing things. We talk to them, we see what's happening out there, and then we try and approach it cautiously. So talking about like the hydrogen, right there, I've got some colleagues who have ordered buses, 50 buses that are arriving, and they have been arriving, and they don't have fuel and they don't have the infrastructure. And so now you have dead buses. I've got another colleague in the Central Valley who's actually putting his fuel cell buses on trailers and taking them to San Mateo, where he's fueling at Samtrans, and then bringing them back to the valley. Yeah. So it's just getting fuel, getting the infrastructure. It's just a huge lift, and so we're going to sit back and wait, and we'll transition as we see appropriate and we think is smart. With these 13 battery electric buses, we'll look at that, but then we're keeping our eyes on hydrogen fuel cell as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So on the taxi side of it, obviously we would see some innovations within, like for Tesla's, their robo taxi. Uber is talking with them on implementing that, which is exciting to me, but is there anything in our policies that may need to be looked at and adjusted to allow for either a direct relationship, let's say with Tesla, on contracting out the robo taxis, or using a third party such as Uber who may use those? So if there is, that's something
That would be problematic for us with any sort of federal money for sure. it would, under existing rules, we would, probably be required to go through a third party for that. And there's still, in California, a lot of issues with the autonomous vehicles still not being, allowed to grow yet. So we're continuing to monitor the autonomous and AV technology. Something I think there's a great use for AV technology is inside our own buses to allow the buses to go through the fuel island and to park themselves and do precision parking so that you don't have to leave enough space for a person to get out of the bus. And if we could get our buses this far apart from one another, we could gain back real estate. But the technology is still developing.
Well, and the only thing I would urge for consideration is looking at, for me, the ideal would be using a third party who would take on those responsibilities. But making sure that our policies would allow for that within in a contract with a third party who may use that technology. And that they have the appropriate insurances in place.
We'll keep that in mind for the future.
Anyone else? Yes.
Yes, I had a few more questions about the charging.
Sure.
Come back to that.
Yeah.
What did you say the range was?
So right now the new buses, they're expected to get about 200 miles between chargers, which is, better. But we still would like to get up to 300. Now I'm seeing and hearing from some colleagues who have those exact buses, and some are getting 325, 350 between charges, but I'm optimistic, and I tend to stick with what Gillig tells me. Gillig tells me to expect 200. I'm gonna expect 200.
Because how many miles does it will
In a
vary,
day?
of course, but how many
Yeah.
miles does a bus drive on a day?
Yeah, so I mean upwards of 500 miles, 600 miles in a day.
Always have to
Yeah.
charge.
So you would have to switch out 3 buses. Where in the past or right now, we've got diesel fuel buses that can go 500-600 miles. So we can leave a bus out there all day long right now, but we'll see what happens when we transition to zero emission buses fully.
And do you charge to 100%?
We charge up to what they allow. So usually it's below. Yeah, it's below. So it's all I guess capped by the software that's within the buses.
Better for the batteries.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
Yeah.
we have the benefit of geography and climate here. We are
We do.
an ideal place
Yeah.
for
Absolutely.
any sort
Yeah.
of electric powered vehicle.
Yeah.
We will get the maximum
Yes.
range that's allowable because it's not too hot, it's not too cold.
Yeah. That we're good there. We're better than a lot of agencies are.
But it will be a new way of having to schedule
Yeah.
all the buses and all the lines.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very interesting.
Okay, anyone else? The power thing just concerns me so much
Yeah.
because, and part of the reason for that is because in my community, we're trying to build houses and we're dealing with PG&E.
Yeah.
And it's
Mhm.
something that I think we all are very well aware of. So
Yeah.
it's a
yeah.
concern.
It's a major concern.
Yeah. Hate to say that, but
Oh,
Look
we
at
all
it.
know it.
Yeah,
It's-
we do.
It's no different in Southern California.
No.
San Diego has their own utility. And so it's a common refrain.
California wants us to do everything and we may
Here
not
we
have
go.
the infrastructure.
That's right.
All right, anyone else have any questions or comments? No? All right,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Great report. All right, moving on. I think we have no closed session items. Does anyone have anything that they would like to say before the end of the meeting? So I'm looking to close this meeting. Adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Right.
All right.
What I wanted to